MT-09 SP. Go! Oh! Ah! Hello everyone, my name is Ian and you're watching Big Rock Moto. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you're new here and you like this kind of content, I hope you'll consider subscribing. Now, I know that many of you may associate my channel with adventure riding and adventure bikes, but the truth is, if you actually look at my content from the very start, I've also featured street bikes. For me, one of the greatest, most absolute pleasures in life that I get to enjoy is tearing up my local back roads, my local streets and canyon roads on a sporty street bike like this. If you're tuning into my channel for the first time, I get a lot of press bikes from different motorcycle manufacturers, and I'm lucky to do that, but I also occasionally purchase bikes for long-term testing. This bike right here, the 2023 Yamaha MT-09 SP, is the newest and sportiest addition to my long-term test fleet. Now, I know you want my full in-depth review of this motorcycle. If you've seen my other motorcycle reviews, you know how in-depth those are. And don't worry, because episode 2 is going to be a full, comprehensive, in-depth review of this bike. Episode 1, today's video, is just going to focus on the 5 main reasons why I chose to personally buy this MT-09. So first, it's probably helpful just to have a few quick basic specs on this MT-09 SP. This bike costs $11,499 for 2023 here in the US. It weighs about 419 pounds or 190 kilograms, fully fueled up. It's got an 890cc 3-cylinder engine, putting out around 118 horsepower and 69 foot-pounds of torque. It features an up-spec Öhlins and KYB suspension. It's got cruise control, it's got advanced rider aids, comfortable ergonomics, and quite honestly, it's probably the most fun you can have while still keeping your clothes on. All right, so what are the 5 reasons that I chose to purchase the MT-09 versus all the other great middleweight naked sport bikes? So number 1 is the engine. The CP3 3-cylinder engine. What do I love about it? The sound, the torque, the power, the flexibility. The thing I like about an inline 3, and I've owned them before, is that they combine the top end rush of a 4-cylinder engine with the low down torque and mid-range power and pull of a twin-cylinder engine. Since I have 2 other motorcycles in my garage that feature parallel twins, I've got an Aprilia with a parallel twin, so I didn't want to get a Tuono 660 because it's the same engine as in my Touareg. I've got a KTM 890, which is a parallel twin, so I really wanted something a little bit different. And I'm a huge fan of 3-cylinder engines, so I decided to go with this. The second reason that I chose to get the MT-09 over the competition is the comfort, ergonomics, and riding position. So we'll get into this in the full review, but if you look at the rider triangle of this bike, you look at the ergonomics of it, how it's more upright. This is something that really drew me to this particular bike versus something like maybe like a street triple or something a little bit in a sportier position. I like to do longer rides, maybe 3-4 hour rides. And for me, being hunched up on a really sporty bike with really high pegs and low handlebars, it just doesn't work for me. I know that's good for the track. I know it's good for aerodynamics, but the real world, it just doesn't make sense to me. So I like the more relaxed rider triangle, the upright ergonomics of this bike. Plus, look at the seat. This thing is super comfortable. Now, the third reason I chose to get the MT-09 SP is because of the overall electronics package. So this bike comes with a 6-axis IMU, or inertial measurement unit. What that means is that as you're riding, the bike can detect all the G-forces, acceleration, braking, cornering, that's happening, and it gives you advanced cornering ABS and advanced cornering traction control. In addition to those features, which a lot of the competitors lack at this price point, around this $10,000, $11,000 price point, you also get everything is adjustable. So you can adjust the wheelie control or the lift control. You can adjust the ABS intervention. You can fine-tune all those features, and it makes for a bike that's really fun to ride, but also safe to ride at the same time. Another thing with the electronics on the SP is you get cruise control. Now, I just can't tell you how valuable cruise control is to me. You might be thinking, well, this is kind of a naked sporty bike, you're going to ride around town or just ride it in canyons, but there are times when you have to cruise on the highway for an hour or two, or even if it's just for 20 minutes, just being able to set that cruise control to keep a constant speed and rest your throttle hand is an amazing thing. Plus, you tend to get less speeding tickets that way, especially with this bike, because you always want to go fast on this bike. Having the cruise control helps you rein that in and get that under control. Very, very few of the competitors out there offer cruise control, even as an option. So the fact that it came standard on the SP, it was pretty much just like it clinched the whole deal for me and really convinced me to get this bike. The fourth reason I decided to get the MT-09 SP for this model year is the chassis and the suspension. So yes, the previous, when Yamaha, going back to when they came out with the FZ09 and the FZ07, and they had the FJ09, which I personally owned, the Tracer 9, they called that in other countries. Now everything's called the Tracers and everything's called the MT, so they've changed the naming convention. But my point is, ever since these bikes have come out, especially the 09s, they've really been plagued with a jerky throttle. They've been plagued also with you know, kind of suspension that's bouncy and just it's not very well controlled. It just makes the bike feel unbalanced and doesn't handle well. Well, with this 2023 SP model, or in fact, when this SP model came out, I think in 2022 or whatever the year this was redesigned, it's either 22 or 21, when the bike was all new, they fixed that. So you have a KYB front fork on the SP model that has high and low speed compression adjustments, rebound adjustments, preload adjustments. It's very well set up and you can really fine tune it. On the rear, you get an Öhlins shock. I mean, how many factory motorcycles around $10,000, $11,000 come with an Öhlins shock? I mean, it's crazy. So the chassis, all the changes they've done for the new MT-09, and you add to that what you get with the SP and the updated suspension, it's really phenomenal. And finally, we have an MT-09 with all this torque, all these features, that actually handles properly. If you wanted to get something comparable to this SP model, you'd have to get the Ducati Monster SP, or you'd have to get the brand new Street Triple 2024 model. You'd have to get the RS version of that. Both of those bikes cost considerably more, 10 to 20% more than this bike. So if you look at it in those terms, this is a relative bargain. The fifth reason I decided to go with the MT-09 is that it's a Yamaha. So I'm not shy about owning European bikes. I've owned BMWs, KTMs, Aprilias, all sorts of things like that. And I love those bikes. I have them in my garage now. But I really like the idea of going with the Yamaha because let's face it, when do you hear of Yamahas breaking down? Yamaha, Honda, Suzuki, Kawasaki too, very reliable. 26,000 mile valve check interval. You're just not going to have any drama or much expense to own and maintain this bike. And I really appreciate that.
So ultimately I bought this bike because it combines everything. It combines so many good aspects. It's sporty, but it's not extreme and uncomfortable. It has a great amount of power, but not an overwhelming amount of power, but it has enough to be exciting and exhilarating. It's got phenomenal suspension, which is key to a good riding experience. The chassis is really good. They've sorted out a lot of the earlier issues that these bikes had, even though the throttle's still a little bit jerky. I've got cruise control for long distance riding or long commutes or riding on the highway, which is a great feature to have. I've got the Yamaha reliability, 26,000 mile valve intervals, which I'll probably never get to 26,000 miles on this bike because I'm not driving it across the country a lot. It's got, I mean, what more could you really ask for? Yeah, the styling is a little questionable, especially from the front, but other than that, this is such a well-rounded package for the money. It gives you practicality and utility, but it also gives you the fun and exhilaration at the same time.
All right, so with those things in mind, let me know, do you think I made the right choice or do you think I made a mistake? Maybe I should have got a KTM Duke 890R. Maybe I should have got a Ducati Monster or the new Street Triple, the 2024 model, the RS model. Let me know what you think. Did I make the right choice or what would you have done differently? Let me know. I think it'll be an interesting discussion in the comments below. Now make sure you're subscribed and stay tuned for the rest of the series on this bike. So if you haven't seen any of my long-term ownership series before that I did with the Touareg or I did with the Norden 901 or I'm doing with the KTM 890 or other bikes, you're in for a treat because I really go into detail. So episode 2 is going to be a full in-depth review, riding position, We're going to even get Maggie on the back here to see how that is. We're going to, you know, take it on a full road test. We're going to show you all the specs and features, all that kind of stuff. So stay tuned for that. And somewhere in episode 3 and 4 is going to be some lightweight sport touring setup on this bike. So I've got saddlebags that go on here, and we're going to see, can you go sport touring on a naked bike? And I think the answer is going to be yes, but I really encourage you to watch that. I think it's going to be a pretty cool episode to see how that works out. Now, if you're new to my channel, you really need to know that I'm also going to be really honest about the negatives with this bike. So there are negatives. The brakes are a little bit mushy. The TFT dash is way too small. The fuel tank's too small. And there's some other little niggles. Also, the throttle response, very jerky and uneven. And we're going to talk about that in my full in-depth review and talk about why I was sort of able to overlook that. And it's not terrible, but it's still definitely an issue, as it always has been with these Yamahas. So we're going to cover all that. We're not going to be afraid to talk about the negative stuff. Now, if you have any questions at this point, please put them below, but keep in mind in a couple weeks I'm going to launch the full review on this bike, which will cover just about everything. But if you have any burning questions, you can join my Patreon group, and Patreon gets you access to the Discord server where you can chat with me, or you put the question below or send me a DM on Instagram. I'm usually able to respond to those things. I try to do my best to keep in touch with all those comments and emails that I get. So I hope this was useful. I hope you enjoyed it. Please support Big Rock Moto. There's ways to do that in the video description and a pinned comment below. Other than that, ride safe, and I'll see you out there.